So we've had some time for people in the room to reflect. We've had some time, hopefully, for the people who are online also to reflect, get a chance to kind of think back about what we've been talking about. We've heard a lot of interest in plugins, in the getting started experience, and so on. So Maribeth has bravely volunteered to come up and give an impromptu demo of all sorts of plugins. So, Maribeth.
Hey, this is unscripted, so bear with me. So I have my laptop here, and I'm just going to show off some of the stuff that we've been working on in the past year, specifically in the plugins category. So one thing that we've heard is that when people come to Blockly, we get a lot of people who come to Blockly who are new to web development, and web development in 2023 is complicated, to say the least. So one thing that we have done is I've created a sample app. So React, if you're new to React, you go to the React docs and they're like, hey, run this script and we will like bootstrap an application for you. I think that's really cool. I wanted to make one for Blockly. So I made this pretty recently. We haven't advertised it heavily. So I'm going to show that real quick. I just killed my server though. And so the sample app it basically shows all the pieces of creating a Blockly app. So over here we've set up Blockly, we've set up the workspace. We're showing the generated code in JavaScript, and then we actually run the code in show low output window. So this is like the ugliest app that you've ever seen because I'm not a UI designer, but it shows all the pieces that go into making a Blockly app, including custom blocks and custom generators. So normally the text block that we ship with Blockly like makes a little alert box. You all know what I'm talking about. I made a custom block that actually just puts text in an output div. So I have this custom add text block, and I can change the color of the text I print out. It's amazing. But the whole idea is that it's an example of how to do a custom block, and importantly, it's a custom block that is totally outside of the core Blockly library. So earlier when I talked about people forking, they just shove their blocks into our blocks directory. This is an example of like, you don't have to do that. It's your own block. And then I wrote a generator for it that has like advanced generator features like utility functions here. So that's a sample app. And then to prove that it works as a base for like a more complicated app, I actually have typing while live is really fun. So the app uses Webpack just because if you're new to web development and you don't know how to build things, like I've written a Webpack config for you, and the idea is you can use that for as long as it works for you, and then when you learn more about Webpack and you realize you want to do things differently than how I've done it, great, change it, but that part's on you. I've just given you like a really basic one to get started. But here's my P5 app. So P5 is processing. And they have like simple JavaScript APIs for drawing shapes and a bunch of other things. But I focused on the shape part, and I converted some of the APIs into blocks and populated my app with them. So they have like the setup and the draw method. The draw method runs in a loop. And so I can drag some blocks over here and make blocks with random colors everywhere. It works. It's P5, and then you can see the generated code here. So this I made, but in the sample app in like the infrastructure that I've set up. So most of you here have already used Blockly, you don't need this. But if you ever are starting a new app from scratch, if you want to check out how I set up my app, like you can, and let me know what you think. So the code is in Blockly samples in the examples directory. The P5 code isn't up there. Maybe I'll put it up there, or I don't know. If you want the P5 code, let me know. I'll send you a link. So the other thing I want to show off is some plugins that we've been working on. So this is our plugin site. Have you guys seen this? Like, anyone? Does this look totally unfamiliar? Okay, so this is where you can find all of our plugins. There should be a link to this on our documentation site. I'll check that that's true after this, but it's on the GitHub pages for samples. And all of the plugins that we publish, there's a demo of those. So I'm just going to show off some. The shareable procedures is something Becca worked on very hard last year and this year. And we have a really cool demo that shows how it works. So you might have heard me talking about this. I asked Evan if they were going to use it. So in the basic blocks that ship with Blockly, we assume that all procedures are on the same workspace. So if you create a procedure call block and the procedure definition block doesn't exist on that same workspace, we'll just create it for you because we assume like something has gone wrong. You can't have a procedure call if there's no definition. But with the new blocks that Becca made, we have an external data model so that you can share blocks across workspaces. So, for example, on the left workspace, I have a procedure. On the right workspace, I can call it. And so this looks simple, but behind the scenes, this was a lot of work to get right, to get the serialization working right, to get the events working right. But we've made it pretty easy to use. You can actually just drop in these blocks as a replacement to your own blocks. And this is one of the things that we built with code.org in mind so that we can enable some of their more advanced features for Sprite Lab. So this is an example of like, if we can collaborate, we can bring you back to mainline, we can build really cool stuff. And the benefit is like this isn't locked away in code.org's fork anymore. Now this is available to everyone. And that's like the beauty of not having things locked away in forks. We have the dependent dropdown. So I think Rachel mentioned this earlier. So in these blocks, I don't actually know how these blocks work, but when you change the parent dropdown, so the first one on the field, it changes the options in the child dropdowns. So if we keep going, so if we switch back to B, then the options have changed. So this is a very common pattern that people want in their blocks, but there's a lot of things that you have to think about to set this up for yourself. Again, with serialization, making sure that the values are loaded in the correct order. So again, we have a plugin here which makes it easier to set up, but also if you want to do something more complicated, you can look at our code for an example of the kind of things that you need to think about if you want to add this to your own application. This one, I don't know. What happens if I type stuff here? No, I don't know how these blocks work. Live demos. We also have the inline row separators demo. So this is another really common feature request that we've had. Whereas in the standard Blockly blocks, which I can probably find, in these blocks, so the create text block, you can either have, these are external inputs, or you can have inline inputs that are all on the same line. Those are like the two options that we give you in basic Blockly. But it's been a really common feature request that people want these inline inputs, but on their own row. So we have a plugin that does that, which also serves as an example as you're designing custom blocks for how you can get this. And this is I believe it's implemented as a custom renderer that parses new lines in your block definitions. So this block has the inline inputs, but each is on their own row. So again, looks super simple, but hasn't been available in core Blockly until now. We also have a shadow block converter. So this is another like pretty common feature request where shadow blocks are great. If you're not using shadow blocks in your app, like I recommend that you that you add them because they provide hints to your users about what type of block should be connected. So to this print block, we have a shadow block connected, which tells the user like, hey, this is where you could put a text block. And so the user could drag a text block and connect it there. But a lot of times, because there's a text box here, the user will just start typing. And in base Blockly, that'll stay a shadow block and could be replaced by other blocks. It's a little bit confusing. But with this plugin, as soon as I start editing it, it becomes a real block. And now it's a real block. I can move it. The shadow block has remained here. So this plugin just converts, once you start editing shadow block, it'll convert all of the parent blocks to shadow blocks so that it works with the rules of Blockly. That might be all I have to think of. Marks. Okay, so another thing that we've added to the plugin showcase, this is what we think of as the definitive place to like see what plugins that Blockly has available, but we also want to show off your plugin. So if you create plugins, we want you to be able to advertise them to the Blockly community. One way is by tagging things on NPM or by putting Blockly in the name of your plugin. People might be able to find it on NPM, but the search experience isn't great. So we are accepting pull request. If you want to add your plugin to this website, just send us a pull request and put a link to it. So Mark Friedman, if you're watching, we used his plugin as a guinea pig here. And so we added a link in the third party section. And it can go to wherever you want. You can set up a demo page like we have. Mark's just links to the NPM page, which tells you a little bit about this plugin. So this plugin also like a highly requested feature to have local variables in Blockly. That's not something we want to do in core because it is complicated. And it adds a lot of complication to core if we have to worry about it. But Mark has written a plugin to do lexical variables so that you can have scoped variables. So you can have a variable that only applies within the C-shaped block that the variable is declared in. So this is available now. You can add this to your app and you can find it through our plugin showcase. So again, if you have plugins, please send them to us. We'd love to add more to this site. But I think that's all I have. So thanks for watching my impromptu demo. And I will let Rachel tell us what's happening next. Maybe it might just be Cass.
Yes.
Oh, sure. Yes.
Any questions in the room about all the things? Plugins, plugin ideas, any jokes about plugins, Aaron?
If you just want to complain about the process of making plugins, I'll accept that.
Becca.
If I want to make a cool plugin, where can I go to look for ideas?
In the Blockly samples repo, we have issues tagged by different categories. So you can go to samples, you can look at size small if you just want to contribute small fixes. But we also have a tag that I don't know the name of, but you can look through our tags. Category plugin, that's it. And you can find ideas for plugins that we've added as issues, or sometimes someone will ask us for something, we'll move it to the samples repo. So if you just want to make a plugin for other people to use, we do have a list of ideas in the issues of our samples repo.
Sweet, thank you.
Thanks.
Do you have a favorite plugin?
I'm really excited about the shared procedures. So because we're about to, code.org has the modal function editor where when you edit a function, it pops up in like a little modal window. I'm really excited to make that and use the shareable procedures. So excited.
That is exciting. Let's see, I think I see a comment on the live stream. Is there documentation to get started on plugin development?
Yes. So on our dev site, we also, I think sometime last year, reorganized the documentation. So anything that relates to contributing back to Blockly is in this contributing section. And under contributing to samples, there's a lot of information about our practices, how we do development, how our pull requests work. But there's also information about how to write a plugin. So somewhere on this page, we tell you how to get started. We actually have a script that you can run that will bootstrap a plugin for you, just like the sample app, but it creates like the skeleton structure of a plugin. So hopefully it's really easy to get started developing a plugin.
Great. One more question. Rachel might take this one. Mark said he made a custom plugin for Toolbox block search and has not seen it in the official Blockly Dash samples.
Yeah, so there are a couple things that could be happening here. We distinguish between our first-party plugins and our third-party plugins, which Maribeth alluded to with that. One thing is the first-party plugins, those are ones that we're committing to maintaining in some form. And the third-party plugins are like, these are things other people made. We're not going to guarantee that it is, the best code ever and will work for every single use case, but we do think it's good and we want to share it. So if you want something added there, you can make a pull request against the Blockly samples repository, and we have the particular page, like the web page that all of this is derived from. You can make a pull request against that to add your sample there, and then we'll be able to add it. If for some reason you did that, it didn't work, we closed it or something, you can email us. Just post on the forum or file a bug if there's been an issue with that, and we'll work that one out.
Yeah.
Great. Cool. Any more questions in the room? Maybe one more from Evan.
Just a very quick one, although I probably could ask as an issue. Should we be making the pull request against master or GitHub pages branch? For
Master.
master, okay.
So
Gonna
this is a
put
good
the-
point.
Yeah.
The process for submitting a pull request to add your link here is not written down anywhere, so I will write that down.
Okay, because what I was going to do is put in the one for Songlin's plugin that he did with us for Google Summer of Code that was presented yesterday. So
Yes,
that'll be up there.
absolutely. We would like to have that as a linkable one. Cool. Okay.
Great.
All right. Thank you.